Welcome to The Lab, where we talk about life and beats with creators in electronic music around the world. Brought to you by Pushing Buttons Collective.
Yeah, so nothing new. Where did he come from? Who is he? What's the origin story?
What does nothing new mean?
Yeah, so I started off playing drums in a bunch of bands when I was like a teenager, and that's how I kind of got my start just being around recording studios and instruments and different songwriting styles. And then like one day in 2012, I had bought um, just some random app on the App Store called Nano Studio, and I thought maybe I'll learn how to make beats off of it. Something just like clicked and made me kind of look for that app. And I started making beats off this phone while I was still in a band up until, like, I guess the band kind of took a break because our guitarist, his guitar had snapped in half at a rehearsal one day.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was kind of like the last straw for him. He's like, all right, I'm just going to get a job and work this job, and that's it. But because the band took a hiatus, that left me with the itch to kind of make more music. So I started making more and more beats off this cell phone, and I picked up a laptop off of Craigslist, and it had Ableton on it. So I started transferring the skills from the cell phone onto Ableton, and I've been kind of hooked doing beats ever since. And while it was picking up,
You
I was
just
still
found a laptop with Ableton on it already?
yeah, Craigslist is funky.
That sounds like fate.
Yeah, and the funny thing is I bought that laptop for Photoshop. I didn't buy it for Ableton. I wanted it for Photoshop and Illustrator, but it had
That's dope.
Ableton and Logic on it.
Oh. Oh,
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But the name Nothing New, that was just a moment of clarity kind of situation. I don't remember what sparked the title. I remember sitting on the floor in my bedroom at my mom's crib making beats, trying to figure out just a name for the project I was doing. It wasn't supposed to be like my producer name. It was like an album name or something. And Nothing New was the one that clicked. Right, it just hit like that. But I've been working backwards and kind of trying to figure out what exactly the title means and how it relates to me. So it's funny, like the album that I just did, Foreign and Familiar, is actually the definition of nothing new. So the term nothing new is something that everybody says, everybody knows it, but the way I spell it and stylize it is unique to me. So I like to think of it as like there really isn't anything new out there. We've been on this planet for millions of years. Or not us, but like this planet's millions of years old, rather. You know what I mean? And nothing really can be new at this point. But the only thing new really is the fact that it's you doing it. So anybody can make a beat. Anybody can make a song. Anybody can be a producer. But the difference between me and the next person is that it's me. It's my experiences and how they formed me, my sound, and my ear.
True.
Right.
Because you're one of one.
Right.
Word. One of one. Nah, that's dope. I never knew that that's what you... I just never knew. Nothing new meant, I knew there was a deeper meaning, but I just never knew that, Well, anyway, moving on, man. I mean, so you're making beats in your parents' house. You got Nano Studio, you got this new laptop or this used laptop with Ableton and Logic. What's the next step that had you say, okay, I feel confident now that I want to play stuff out or be around people that are doing the same thing that I'm doing, as far as like going out into the beat scene and stuff like that?
That was another chance happening. I had been making beats from 2012 to 2016, and it was kind of on the side of being in a band. And I was working at a recording studio, and the recording studio gig kind of failed out, and I was without money for a while, without an income, without a job, because I quit everything to work at that studio. So I just got really heavy back in the beats because I had nothing else going on. And I think I posted a video on Instagram and Beat House had liked it, and I didn't think anything of it because I really wasn't taking it that much serious. Um, and I just one day clicked on Beat House's page to see what they were about, and I saw that they were at Friends and Lovers, and that was like 15 minutes away from my parents' house. So I was like, all right, you know what? Next time I kind of see an opening for that, I'm gonna go down and check it out. And I did, and it was life changing. I think I saw Boise, Josh Hay. I forgot who else was on the bill, but it was so wild. And
I think I was there that night.
you might have been. I think you might have handed me a flyer, but I was so like fresh into the stuff that like I didn't know who anybody was. But I remember going there and Boise had played something, and it hit in this way that like I thought no one else kind of liked beats like that, because I was a heavy Flying Lotus fan for a while, still am, and to hear other people hitting that like that very specific kind of rhythm, I was like, all right, this is home. I got to figure out how to be a part of it.
True, man. Now, I mean, that's interesting that you mentioned Flying Lotus, because I feel like a lot of stuff that I hear from you, especially like as far as the percussion, there's a lot of, I don't want to say Flying Lotus stylings, but there are parallels. How do you feel your musicality as a drummer, percussionist, informed your beat making process?
Oh man, tons. I drummed in what we were calling progressive metal bands. So like the time signatures would change a lot. The BPM would change a lot. I just loved things that were challenging. So when I wrote beats, when I started writing like really, basically the first time I heard Until the Quiet Comes, I went back to my DAW and tried to figure out how to make the most complicated drum patterns that also felt, digestible and organic. So I found like this thing that would just constantly challenge me, and it was just this urge to make things that would push the boundaries
That's dope.
of rhythm a little bit further than what's accustomed to in hip hop. So that, in combination with the fact that my mom is an African drummer, and she would host, she would host band practice with her group in the same basement that my band would practice out of, which happened to be the same basement that my parents' band used to practice out of. So I would be hearing African rhythms at like 6 in the morning, or not 6 in the morning, but like 8 in the morning while my mom was practicing, and then 12 in the afternoon when the whole band came through. So it was like constantly hearing these rhythms, these unconventional rhythms that made me want to bring to hip hop.
That's dope.
That's dope. I mean, your mother and father were in the same band?
Yeah.
Dope. I didn't know. I knew your father was, but I didn't know your mother was a musician. But it makes sense. She looks like she's got that. So
what is the band, if you don't mind asking?
What was that?
What is the band that they were in?
It was like a reggae band. It was my mom playing guitar, my dad playing bass, and then we had
Wow.
Kimani's
That's amazing.
mom, the host of In Plain Sight and a co-founder, Kimani's mother, used to sing in the band. So that's how I actually met Kimani.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
That's really dope.
That's dope. That's dope. So listen, we're gonna take a little break. We're gonna take a little pause for the cause. We're gonna play a track off of Recollections, Other Side by Nothing New, and we'll be right back.
Yo, what made you want to start In Plain Sight? What started that off for you?
Yeah, no doubt. When I was looking for ways to get in the beat house, I couldn't find any openings, and they didn't know that I made beats like that. And I didn't know who to talk to kind of make headway into anything. I didn't know what Pays did. I didn't know what anyone really did. And then one day, Beat House did like the open aux night, and I remember like speeding to get home from work from Long Island. I had a busted 303, and I sped home from work, made sure I had everything in order, got to the venue at Friends and Lovers, and I was like one of the first people online, and played beats, and that kind of opened up that itch. But there wasn't another outlet after that. So like I was ready to play more shows, but nobody was really telling me where to find places to go do it. So I was like, all right, whatever. I met people at Beat House that made beats like mine. I figured I would. That was at that night I met Thomas Piper too, who's another resident at In Plain Sight. But
Shout out Thomas.
absolutely shout out Thomas. I tapped him on the shoulder. I tapped the boy on the shoulder who I had met at another beat house, and Bureaucratic. I brought him in too because I met him at another event at Spotify, like maybe a couple months before I started going to Beat House, and we did a live stream in my parents' living room. And
I remember that.
yeah, that was like the very first In Plain Sight, and I didn't know anything about Paxico. I didn't know that Paxico Records had been doing it. I just wanted to give myself a platform to play because I didn't know where else to go. And the feedback was so big from that we had other people asking when's the next one. We didn't plan for there to be a next one. It was supposed to be like a one-off thing. So we ended up, doing another one at a recording studio and another one at Thomas Piper's apartment. And by that point, we were like, all right, we might as well just make this a thing. So through like shows that I've been playing locally, I met Sum Total, who I used to work with at Urban Outfitters like years ago. And he had an opening at Father Knows Best. They were trying to figure out what to do with that opening because there was a residency there before, but it fell through. But I said, what if I took that opening and used that for In Plain Sight? And that was after we had done the block parties and everything, and we realized that we needed a home for it. So we moved it to Father Knows Best, and it's been there ever since.
Nice. I mean, I feel that In Plain Sight has kind of filled the void that Beat House left when Fresh Daily moved to the West Coast. And you guys have been holding it down in New York, as far as to the best of my knowledge, as a place for people to go listen to some dope beats, hear some up and coming beat makers, as well as people that are established. So salute to you guys.
Yeah, y'all have been consistent.
Yeah, y'all stay consistent.
For sure. Yeah, I remember my first In Plain Sight party. It was pretty dope. Everyone was dancing.
Yeah.
The vibe was really just like something I hadn't felt in a little while.
Right.
So yeah, shout out to y'all for that.
Yeah, because it's like beats early, and then you have incredible DJs, from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's just lit. Like, I know every time I go there, I hear something new that I'm like, okay, I need to go back to the lab and work on something new. You know what I'm saying? Something new from nothing new.
And that's how I feel.
I mean,
Every time we do thing, I get my face blown off by somebody who I thought I've heard everything from, and they still come with new beats. It just pushes me to push harder.
No, that's crazy.
That's beautiful.
That's a beautiful thing. So yeah, salute to you guys because I feel like I said, you guys are filling a void that you guys are providing a service to an underserved community out here in New York. So salute to you guys.
And that's what
man.
it's all about.
Word. What's your vision, for In Plain Sight in the future, as far as like, collaborations or music or what have you? What is like 2 years from now for In Plain Sight look like?
2 years, dang man.
That's a big question.
We've been playing a lot of this stuff by ear. Like
Okay.
it's one of those things. It's a cliche thing, but we really didn't expect it to pick up the way it picked up. Um, to hear that we're filling the void that B House filled, that's some pretty big shoes. Um, and we're happy to kind of do it, but at the same time, it's like we got to figure out what the next step is. I've been festival minded for a minute, and I've been hesitant to talk about it on social media because I didn't want to present anything half baked or say something too soon and not be able to get it done. But um, I think it's worthwhile to even bring it up. Like we've really been trying to figure out how to turn the block party into a festival, and really forward.
Well, I mean, let's talk about the block party because I always, maybe I got my timeline messed up, but I always thought that In Plain Sight preceded the block party, not the other way around. So that kind of
It
changes
did.
things for
In
me.
Plain Sight did come before the block party because it was in my mom's living room and all those other live stream spaces. But the whole block party thing happened because I had an opportunity. My block would always ask me. They do like two. They do two block parties. One at the beginning of the summer and one at the end of the summer. Um, and they would always ask me if I wanted to have my band play, and I would say no because we were a heavy metal band, and I really didn't feel like doing that. Um, but when I started doing In Plain Sight, I was kind of hoping like maybe they would ask me if I was doing anything for the block party, and they came around and they asked me if I was doing something. And I was like, yeah, I've got a couple people that make beats and a couple of DJs. I'm thinking of doing just like a little show out front. And Hayes, I think you were on the first block party show.
I
Yeah.
believe I was, yeah.
Um, I know you weren't on the second one. Yeah, it was definitely the first one. Uh,
Right.
yeah, I was just trying to make it so that we took that whole vibe from In Plain Sight that everybody was watching via like live stream and give it a face to go with it, a physical face to kind of go with it.
Word,
And that was the
word,
first
word.
time they did that.
Wait, what was it like? I gotta ask what it was like being in a heavy metal
Oh,
band.
that's interesting. That's people kind of skirt over that. Um, the
I
heavy
want to
metal stuff
know.
was super important because those were spaces, contrary to popular belief, like those are spaces for healing. Like people would let out a lot of aggression, a lot of anger, sometimes anger that they didn't even think was in them, they would let it out. And I know I would come into those shows sometimes having like a beautiful day, and I'd hear the music and little bits of pent up rage that was kind of sitting there would hit, and I would be able to release it in that spot. So fast forward to now, where I'm trying to make healing music, I'm recognizing that a lot of the times we respond to the way different instruments kind of vibrate. And heavy metal is a lot of dissonant chords, a lot of distortion, a lot of loud noises. That stuff is meant to kind of upset what your body's kind of vibrating at. Whereas hip hop, I feel like the bass vibration, the drum patterns, the at least what I do, the use of Rhodes and softer pads and calming instruments, it hits you differently. It puts you in a space where you're kind of more open to healing in different ways. I try to create heady music, stuff that really puts you in a completely different space. And if I hadn't been playing in metal bands where I could, visually kind of see people reacting to musical vibrations, I wouldn't know how to do that with hip hop. It also had a real big effect on how I perform live.
I was just about to bring that up because, I mean, your performances are like, I mean, it's like you might as well go to your chiropractor after you're done watching a Nothing New performance because
Dude, I
you gotta,
Tons of
definitely
energy,
need
man.
yeah. I mean, but it's just like you said, it's healing music. It's a lot of positive energy, and I feel that your music, because it has that bass bottom as well, it hits that chakra, that
Yeah.
those lower chakras
And
that.
it's cathartic for me on stage. I know it's all positive, but for me, it's a purge. I release a lot through all that movement and through all the music. I let the music do. I'm the first person who this music heals before it touches anyone else. I make sure that it puts me in the places I want to put others in. So So I'm the first to admit that I've cried to my stuff. I've like processed emotions through my stuff. I've cried on stage because it's really working
Word.
things out of me that I'm not vocal with a lot of the stuff that I'm going through. And I know a lot of, especially like black men, are not vocal about anything emotional. So for me to have a platform where I'm a musician, but I'm also a person of color and I'm also a man, and I have people looking at me, you know, I try to make it known when I'm going through something so people can see that, you know, it's okay to admit that you're going through something. You don't have to act like you're the strongest person on the face of the earth, you know, like it's okay to really process emotions and feel them and release them. Because I feel like that's something that a lot of black men don't do. They just push it down. And that's way worse than
Right.
just letting that stuff out.
Word.
Word. I mean, so with that being said, I mean, how would you describe your sound? I know it's healing, but you know, how would you describe like the process that you go through to make this healing music? Because like a lot of your titles to your songs or to your albums, like Recollections and Foreign Familiar, it has a healing effect. You know, it's definitely showing the journey and
Yeah,
and a
it definitely
process.
does.
So I mean, how would you? I know you kind of described it, but you know,
So
let's
there
dig a
are
little deeper
two
into
different,
that.
I function a lot kind of in duality. So there are two different ways that I approach writing music. There is the day-to-day way that I write music, which is like if something hits me, I'll probably write something really quickly. I'll write like a loop, and I'll stack on top of that loop till it feels full, and I'll come back to that loop later. Um, and then there is kind of when I'm channeling something. And I know when I'm channeling something because it's normally when I'm really going through something, like emotionally, probably something heavy. I'll start hearing full songs kind of in my head. And I'll have to go write them down. Like I'll hear them in the shower or I'll hear them while I'm driving. And that's how I know I'm really working through things. So Foreign and Familiar was like an exercise of coming home every day, listening to samples, chopping them up, and you know, kind of getting that stuff together. And that was fun, but that was kind of mechanical for me. Recollections, a lot of the tracks that were on that record, those came as direct responses to something that might have been traumatic. And like recently, I recognized it within myself that a lot of music that I write comes as a direct response to trauma. And that whole recollection sound, all those bells and rows and pads, chimes, African drums, I can't tap that unless I'm really working through something.
So you have to be in a high emotional state.
That's the only way healing works. You know,
I feel that.
If I can't heal myself through it, then it's not going to have that effect on anyone else.
Word.
So when that's not what you're feeling, how do you create? How do you stay inspired if you're not going through a serious moment in your life?
Inspiration, you know, it's constant. You're always ready to write something. The trick is that our ego kind of jumps in front of it before we really start writing. So before I sit down, I make sure to kind of check in with myself and ask myself how I'm feeling. What's going on with me? What am I thinking of? And once I check in with myself, I'll start writing. And if I'm trying too hard at a pattern, it's probably not the style of music I'm supposed to be writing right now. There'll be days where you'll try and write a trap song, and it won't sound right, but you really want to write a trap song. But in reality, your body, your mind, your spirit is all saying, I want to write something house, or I want to write something R&B. But because your brain and your ego is so focused on making that trap song, you start feeling writer's block. Genuinely, I think that like there is no writer's block. It's just that our egos told us what we're supposed to be writing, when in all actuality, our heart is saying do something else entirely.
Wow. Yo. Okay. On that note,
That rings true.
One time for self-awareness. Damn.
Like we got to take a pause. Man. We're going to play something else off of Recollection. This is Amuse by Nothing New. We'll be right back. let's talk about how you wear a lot of hats. You work every day. You work at Korg. And I'm assuming in a graphic artist capacity, and you help with their artist relations. I'm assuming from what you told me. Yeah, and then
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I'm primarily a graphic designer there. But when I got there, I was kind of like, hey, listen, I also make music and I'm involved with this community here and I'm trying to do this. And I think that your brand could really benefit from coming into contact with what's going on in the city. And from there, they were slowly, well, they still are, they're slowly getting more open to, kind of having me curate uh, events and bring in different artists who aren't on their radar.
yeah, because I mean, I was pleasantly surprised when I
Yeah,
saw them at the last block party. And they had a whole bunch of they had like a listening station where you can try out their latest gear. I mean, that was big that they did that. You know, and you're the one to thank for that. So, but back to the question I was going to ask you is okay, so you work full time, whether you're in the office or you're working from home, you're doing in plain sight, you're making your music.
How do you balance your
How do you
time?
balance your time?
Yeah,
Exactly.
for
Like, how do you
sure.
how do you
That's a
make all that
lot.
work?
How do you stay
Um,
sane? Like, what's
so
your
I'm a person that
process?
stays. I stay prayed up. Number one, I don't think I could do this unless it was there was some type of divine intervention in it. I'm gonna be real about that. I sleep about 5 hours a day. That's not enough sleep for what I do. Um, but you know, it's like small miracles every day to kind of be able to balance all that stuff out. There's no real hard answer for any of it. It's just I shift things around, and when I can get to things, I can, and when I can't, I can't. Um,
That's really, you got to be flexible too.
I mean, it's just rolling with the punches. That's
Yeah.
why, like, in plain sight's been kind of just playing it by ear, and I kind of play everything by ear. Even when Pays asked me when I'd be available to do this interview, I was like, just give me a day, and I'm sure I can kind of move something around to make that room.
Dope, dope, man. I mean, that's just life in the city. Everybody wears a lot of hats, so it's just a matter of juggling. And if it's something that you want to do, you will create the time for it. You know,
Absolutely,
you will.
absolutely.
So, let's talk about, you know, okay, we have Nothing New, the beat maker, producer. What's Nothing New's view on working with vocalists like singers and rappers and what have you?
Um, I'm tricky, man. So right now, I only have such small amounts of time to work on my music. So when I do work, it's primarily for me. Um, so I've had artists approach me about using beats, and they haven't really fallen through. Um, I don't sell beats really. I'd rather work with somebody and curate something that fits their sound. But it's got to really, it's got to move me. Because the thing I like about beat music is number one, it's without ego, in the sense that like when you hear it, there's no words telling you how to feel. There's no one boosting themselves up and making you feel greater than or less than. It's just music. Um, so whatever a rapper or a singer is saying, it's got to be kind of focused on that same thing. We're doing this as a service to other people, and it does help us, but we don't want to get too much in the way of what the music is trying to say to that person. Um, so I'm real tricky with working with artists. I'd love to, but I need the time to really build something with people rather than just selling them beats. Plus, I don't want to sell somebody a beat that I wrote to get over like somebody passing and they don't understand what the purpose of that beat was and they go and rap about, you know, whatever material thing they're trying to rap about, which is all good. But, for me, I got to listen to that track now and I can't take away the fact that this song was about X, Y, Z and you haven't done it justice in my head.
Do you feel the same way about collaborating with other beat makers?
No, but it has to be in person. I've been sent stems before,
Word.
um, and it's nothing personal. They're all beautiful stems from people that I care about and would love to like work with, but I just can't wrap my head around the same creative process that brought them to the stems. But collaborating in person, like I've collaborated with some solo in the past when we did it like organically in one room. I did the same with Brain Orchestra. Like he came over, I had synths turned on, drum pads ready, and we wrote in the same room. K Solar was the same thing. That's the kind of songwriting headspace I have to be in. Like I want to make beats and look at somebody and kind of have that unspoken language where we're both in the same pocket. Otherwise, I'm trying to play catch up to where you left off with your stems, and I might not ever get there.
So who would you say are some of your biggest influences, whether it's in beat culture or heavy metal or all the above? What comes to mind? And I know like that's a hard question. I struggle with that question because I have influences in every corner of music and the world, and it's a hard question. But right now, who's coming to mind? Assuming you have plenty
It's
of
always going to be
others.
the same people.
Okay.
Always.
All right. All right.
Yeah. So number one on my list is a metal band. Their name is Misery Signals, and they make some of the most complex, emotionally rough, like contrasting music I've ever heard. They'll go from something really, really heavy to something really ambient and light, and it it's a roller coaster emotionally. Lyrically, they're talking about like loss. They're talking about overcoming loss. It's just wild. Um, and that was the way they go about chord progressions and time signature changes. These are like jazz players that started playing heavy metal.
Uh,
Um, the shit is insane. I don't know if we're allowed
Wow.
to swear here,
oh
but
yeah.
it's
Can you say the name of that band
um,
one more time?
what was that?
What was the name of that band again?
Misery Signals.
Misery Signals.
Um, and for anybody listening, I would suggest the track World and Dreams. It's an interlude that they play, and it's all like clean and acoustic guitar, ambient, um, insane kind of chord progressions that I've never heard before. And hearing that stuff really changed the way I approached writing melodies in my head, because that was the sound that my bands would be kind of aiming towards, like stuff that's just complex.
Hmm.
And that's how I kind of approach melodic structures and my own stuff. Then we've got Jay Dilla, which is a must. Um, Figuring out that he turned Quantize off really changed how I was making beats, because I started off making like ASAP Rocky, Clams Casino kind of beats. Jay Dilla and understanding how he got to his swing really changed the way I approach drums. Flying Lotus, obviously, like the jazz, the jazz kind of influence, the heavy jazz influence on top of hip hop and house and electronic drums and the glitching. It's just, I mean, I got into him off of Until the Quiet Comes, and that was such a heady, spacey album. Completely changed the way I thought about just creating atmospheres. After One,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh
oh
yeah.
man,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't even have to go into that. If you know, you know. It's just so much, man. Um, and then currently Yusef Kamal.
Okay.
Now, yeah, that's heavy. Black Focus has been on rotation for at least a couple months now. And I saw Henry Wu live
Oh,
at
Henry Wu's
Kamal.
crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
mind altering.
I think we spoke about this before. I spoke to you in some total about this a couple months ago. How I see the in plain sight movement parallels between what y'all are doing and what the West London broken beat groove movement was doing in the late 90s, early 2000, which has had a resurgence with the likes of Henry Wu and, IG Culture. And now they're called Selectors Assemble, where they just make these really oddball, odd meter beats. And it's for the dancers, and I feel that you guys in plain sight, you, Thomas, and Kamani are also providing a space that I can see a collaboration in the future between your camp and Selectors Assemble, which
Sheesh.
Henry Wu is kind of affiliated with. If he's not in them, I don't remember. But yeah, I definitely talked to IG about you guys, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna keep an eye out. So
Whew.
you
Good
know,
luck.
yeah, for sure, man, for sure, man. I feel like I said, you guys are filling a void that is needed out here in New York. So yeah, let's keep it going. Well, you kind of mentioned who you're listening to right now, Yusef Kamal. Um, Anybody else as far as like beat wise, producers, anybody on the come up that you're like, yo, check for this guy, check for this woman.
Wheesh. um, I've been on like a 3 month, not three. I want to say 2 month, just binge of straight jazz. Just
Okay.
trying to digest as much jazz as possible. I'm always gonna big up Foisey and Ewan and Brain because the consistency is wild with them. Um, Jared Jackson has been killing it with the house and garage vibe. Um, I can't think of. There's just so many people that come through in plain sight, and every single person has been just absolutely wild. But for sure, I'm always gonna big up the man's Foisey, Brain, and Ewan because their sounds constantly push me. It's iron sharpening iron kind of thing, man. Like
Word.
whatever they do, I hear it and I'm like, all right, that's how you're coming. Then I got to go back to the lab and figure out how to step that up.
And
Can we
go,
touch back on the jazz that you were mentioning? Jazz is deep and goes back really far. What are you listening to that's inspiring you?
So I recently I mean Sunday I watched Chasing Train. So that's on Netflix, and I went back and re-listened to A Love Supreme and had that bumper for a while, just because I finally kind of understood the headspace that he was in. But then in
Mm.
terms of jazz, I had a playlist that was kind of curated by my Twitter followers. I asked them to refer me to just different people that are doing jazz, like right now, that kind of meets that intersection between jazz and hip hop. And they gave me, I wonder if I can switch over to my Spotify. Um,
I imagine Makai McCraven is on there.
I'm just trying to figure out how many songs are on it. It's a lot, at least 500 to 600 songs. Um,
whoa.
so we've got The Comet is Coming. That's come up a lot. They're
I
crazy.
don't know that.
Big Yuki, Makai McCraven. I did a lot of Hiatus Coyote,
Hmm.
Moonchild,
They're amazing.
Session. Yo, Hiatus Coyote is unstoppable. Probably one of the
So,
best.
I mean, shout out to Napalm, sending you love.
Yes. Oh yeah, I'm scrolling through it now. Now Mansur Brown, his shit's crazy. He's off of the Black Focus camp with Kamal Williams and everything. Somebody referred me to a whole bunch of like Japanese jazz that's just been crazy. Like I've got Fox Capture Plan, uh, Toe, which is just TOE. It's just a lot, man. I could list it, but it's a lot. John Bath has been on repeat a lot.
John Bapp. Yep.
Um, I also went back to Nujabes because Moto Soul, I didn't know that he was using like live percussion. So I went back and listened to that. Um, it's a lot. Oh, I'm bugging. I almost forgot to bring up yesterday's new quintet.
Oh,
Oh
of
yeah.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
Huge, huge, super important. Kareem Riggins as well. Yeah, I'm just scrolling through this playlist because I've had this same
Keep putting
playlist
us
rotating
on.
for a month.
Hey, I'm wondering if
Black
like
Milk.
maybe we could share this playlist with whoever might be listening somehow. Can we include a
Um,
link?
Is there a title, like a name to your playlist?
I've been trying to figure it out because it's hooked to my personal Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want it to go crazy with my like a government name on it. So I've been trying to figure out how to swap maybe the name on the ownership of the playlist. Because otherwise, I would have
Hmm.
shared it with people. Because it's huge. It's so much music.
All right. Well, we'll be on the lookout if that ever
I
happens.
I could
think
also give you some of the songs that really been on rotation for that too, because it's all stuff that I'm listening to in preparation for my next body of work.
Oh, bet.
Bet.
very cool.
So we're gonna take a little break. We're gonna play something from the Foley Fridays series, which we're gonna get into. This is Strange Groove by Nothing New.
Wait, so Foley Fridays,
Yes.
Mangled Mondays.
Foley Fridays, Mangled Mondays.
Let's talk about it.
Word.
Oh man! All right, so that's a big shout out to the homie Stolen Drums out in Atlanta, and shout out to Faze for the alley oop with that connection. Um, when I went down there and played a couple gigs down there, we were just talking about different ways to kind of optimize on social media and use that to an advantage and leverage it. So I had just copped like a GoPro because I wanted to capture my live performances because I felt like that's where people really got the most from me. And after kind of chopping it up with him, I came back and I was like, you know what, it'd be cool to do like a weekly thing. And I came up with Mangled Mondays because it rolls off the tongue, relatively easy. It's got the double first letter of the name thing, just like Nothing New.
Right.
Alliteration. That's the word I'm looking for.
That's the alliteration's the
It's got the
word.
alliteration thing. And that was the same thing with Holy Friday. I wanted to pick stuff that was easy to kind of turn into a hashtag, stuff that's
Memorable.
memorable. Yeah, there we go. And with Holy Friday, I just wanted to really just push the boundary with how I was dealing with percussion. I was already doing a lot of stuff with live percussion, be it by African drums or like a drum kit. But I was figuring like, oh, there's definitely stuff I can do with just sounds around the house. And I was watching, um, I don't remember what YouTube channel it was, but the name of the series was called The Crate or The Box, I believe. And they would send producers like a box with found objects, and they were tasked to kind of make a beat out of all the found objects. And I was like, all right, I can kind of adopt that and leverage my followers, ask them what they want to have me make a beat out of and go out and do it. But I decided that by default, I was only going to use every found object that I had instead of trying to use like synths, VSTs, and different plugins and things like that to get synthesizer noises. I was going to figure out how to use Ableton to really transform these things into synthesizers and pads and lead instruments and all sorts of stuff. And it really taught me more about how Ableton works, the functionality behind that DAW.
Mm-hmm.
As for Mango Monday, that was like me trying to figure out how to make my music live on past just the drop, because I felt like an issue with a lot of artists was that you drop content, like you drop an album or a new song, and it lives for like a week. And then the most you can do is kind of retweet it. If you have visuals for it, you could drop visuals. You could play a show that's like in celebration of it. But after a while, you kind of lose the content and the day-to-day kind of flooding of content from every other artist. So for me, Mango Mondays was a way to keep fresh content coming, but reuse music that needs a chance to breathe.
Word. That's dope.
Yeah, it's a marketing thing.
Yeah, I like the Foley Fridays because you also sell a sound pack, which is going
Yeah,
into the whole marketing, optimizing, maximizing the potential and hitting different people different ways.
Yeah.
It's that's actually kind of genius.
You're really entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
Like
you're
you're
really
really out here
entrepreneurial.
trying to
Yeah.
make it work. Like, do you have any tips for people in this scene or just starting out, putting their music out there and building community? Do you have any tips for maximizing on that from an entrepreneur's perspective? Yeah.
for sure. Um, don't be afraid to eat huge amounts of shit falling directly on your face. Like, I feel like I feel like people are so afraid to eat shit. Like, they're so afraid to take that first jump and fall on their face and fail miserably, you know?
Hmm.
And once you've done it and you're kind of able to get up after it, you can take that risk in anything. Um, and I worked at a job. I was at Doc Martens as a manager. I couldn't stand doing it because it was just I felt myself kind of getting old, and I wanted to do more with my life. And I had the opportunity to intern at a recording studio. And after a while, the guy there was like, "Yo, if you really want to take this serious, you need to make the jump." And that was the first time I ever made like that real jump and committed to music. And I fell directly on my face. Like after a year of doing it, it all fell through, and I was without a job and without a stable income. I was like stuck at my parents' house. Um, so when you're really doing entrepreneurial stuff, don't be afraid to take those L's. If you can get up from them, if they're not things that are going to completely devastate you, you can take those risks. Anybody can do it. Stop waiting for like management to come and pick you up, or a tour manager to figure out where you're going to go next, or anything really. We are the label. We can do it with ourselves. We can connect to people out of state and book our own tours. As long as you're not afraid to sleep on the floor or sleep on somebody's couch or something. I think that's all coming from being in hardcore bands. You know, you really had to DIY everything. We were printing merch out my mom's bathroom. Like we had a silk screening press running out my mom's bathroom, burning our own CDs, handing out flyers, like real boots to ground type of stuff, man, and sleeping on people's floors. So when it gets to hip hop, I feel like there's this need to be validated by like the machine, the industry that's gonna give you the label and the tour money and the rider and everything. That's all stuff you can handle in and of yourself. Just gotta weigh the expenses and do it. Just do it. Nike already said it best.
Word. So, I mean, with that being said, this is going to be our last question. We're going to wrap it up. What's your vision for beat culture in New York and throughout the world?
Um, this is truthfully, this is the first time I'm really seeing hip hop return kind of to its ethos. Really being forward in progressing sound left off when it shifted to being like glamorized. And beat culture has a huge role in it because beat culture hasn't been glamorized yet. Nobody's really making that money off of beat culture the way that rappers are making money off of hip hop now. So we're still doing this for the love, and as people catch on, it'll catch on like wildfire. And it's already kind of worldwide. My vision is to maintain the integrity of it. Like the people who put the work in should be the people that eat. It shouldn't be going to people who are just trying to capitalize off of it. as much hard work is being done by us now and those before us and those who might come after us, those are the people that need to really eat off the culture. I want to see my peers and all of us really get our flowers while we're still here and do that before it becomes some kind of worldwide phenomenon where we're left out or, written out by the industry itself. But we already saw it happen once with hip hop. We already saw hip hop get revised into something else entirely separate from like the ethos of everything. Now it's anybody's music when it didn't start like that.
Right. Right. Well, on that note, on behalf of the Pushing Buttons Collective, we thank you for taking out time out of your busy schedule to sit down and rap with us.
This is dope.
This is dope. This is Pays Infinite.
I'm Bamada.
We got Justin Raymond and V
That's
Notes
me.
in the building, continuing on with the beat culture, and we got Nothing New on the line. Thanks a lot, my brother. We're gonna close it out with a track off of Foreign and Familiar. This is Meditation.
Thank you.